If you're someone who, say, doesn't like to eat before they work out, but you do like to work out in the morning, like how do you work with a client like that? Because bluntly, like a lot of my clients train in the morning, and finding that balance of both time, not feeling too full when they get to the gym, all that kind of stuff can be challenging on a lifestyle side of it. And I certainly don't want them puking in my session. So how do you approach? And I would assume too for like your races and stuff. I mean, a lot of that stuff you have to get up really early in the morning, go check in, get to the start line. So how do you approach early workouts and the fuel that is necessary for those?
Yeah, I always try to get people to think about what food sits really well in their stomach and they digest really easily, right? Like I would never eat a banana or oats before I ran out the door 10 minutes after eating and drinking coffee, because that just doesn't sit well in my stomach. It does for a lot of people. For me, graham crackers, like I don't even realize I've eaten. So I eat 1 graham cracker some days. I eat 6 some days, depending on the work ahead. You know what I mean? So like I always try to challenge when somebody's like, I can't eat. I'm like, but we can if we find the right thing, right? Like if we can find the right, it takes no thought. You grab a graham cracker and eat it as you're tying your shoes and or driving to your, lifting session, that kind of stuff. Because the truth is if we have even a tiny bit of fuel in our system before we start working out, our system's like, oh, I'm good. I got some fuel. I can do this workout. Whereas if we don't have any fuel, our body's like, oh my gosh, I don't have the fuel. You're asking me to do all this. And it kind of freaks out and heightens that like stress response, which we don't want, post workout. So I typically try to get people to eat something, like start small and see how it works. But if someone's like, it's never going to happen, right? We can either have like a snack right before bed, which can be beneficial. And if that doesn't happen, it just makes that recovery nutrition timing that much more imperative. Like, okay, you're not going to eat beforehand, but where is your smoothie, your shake, your granola bar, whatever, that we're eating literally as we're leaving the workout, so that, we can try to calm down that stress response as soon as possible.
For sure. And that's actually what I wanted to ask next on the back end of that, literally on the back end of the workout, because there's, for a long time, like places like Exos would say, hey, protein within 2 hours of working out, within 30 minutes is ideal. Then you have this other group on kind of the other end of the spectrum that's like, nah, it doesn't really matter. Timing that doesn't matter. It's about your weekly protein intake. And you're like, well, that seems very extreme on the broad end of things. So where are you? I know where you sit because I know that you're a proponent of the shower shake. But from a research standpoint, where are we on post-workout nutrition, post-workout protein? What's good, what's bad, and when should we take it?
Yeah. So truthfully, the macronutrient that, in my opinion, is the most important for timing is protein. So we can store carbohydrates, we can store fat. We can't actually store protein in our body, right? Like there's a little bit of like free amino acids floating around, but like we don't have a storage form. It's in our muscles. So if our body is trying to recover from a hard workout and we're not giving it that protein, it's going to break something down in our body to get that protein to recover the other area, which is just totally counterintuitive to what we're trying to accomplish here. So, and there's phenomenal research to support this as well, that we need like a certain amount of protein to trigger that muscle protein synthesis post-workout, and that we want to try to trigger it at least 3 times a day. And if we're trying to put on muscle mass, we want to do it 4 times a day. So have like a 4th meal of protein before bed, and try to separate them by like ideally 3 hours. Obviously, if you're doing 4, it might need to be closer. So, truthfully, I think there's nothing more important from a nutrition standpoint with timing than protein. Just because we can't store it and we need a certain amount to trigger that, recovery is basically what muscle protein synthesis is.
So with that in mind, is there a certain amount of protein that we can digest or absorb in per sitting, right? I always tell my clients that, hey, if 150 grams of protein is the goal for the day, you can't just get that all in one sitting. You're not going to absorb it. How much can we absorb in one sitting? So if I'm trying to take in 150 grams of protein, how many times do I need to do that? And is 3 enough, or do I need to do that 5 times a day at 30 grams per sitting? Or what's the formula there?
No, this is a really good conversation that I think a lot of people probably need to hear. So we can absorb and utilize protein, but like it's worthless after a certain point. So like when you look at graphs of when they trigger muscle protein synthesis, like it stops after like 40 grams of protein for most people. So it's like you could eat more. Your body just isn't going to use it for what you think it's being used for. It's being used for energy. It's converted into something else.
Gotcha.
So protein is the most expensive part of our cart each week, right? Like protein is very expensive these days, even protein powders, things like that. So it's like, why take in more than we need, right? Yeah. Let's figure out like how much we need. So to your point, a lot of it is based on body weight. So it's like 0.4 to 0.55 grams per kilogram per meal is what the research says, which that means nothing to anyone I know. For most people, like if it was a small female runner, right, that would be like 20 to 25 grams. But for a lot of my larger males, like some of my triathletes that are, 210 pounds, this is like 40 grams of protein, at a meal. So anywhere between that, like 20 and 40 is where most people will sit per meal, which for some people is like totally shocking and eye-opening. And oh my gosh, I don't get that in the morning. And then for some people, it's like, no, I got that already. So to your point, like it could be spread out into like 3 or maybe 4 occasions. Yeah. And then you're going to get some protein at snacks, but that's more for like a satiety, keeping you feeling full. It's not necessarily for like muscle recovery.
Thanks for checking out this video. If you like it, we got more. Make sure you subscribe right here on YouTube and check out our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, or even our website. It's got everything there, all the links you could possibly want. Go check it out, trainwiththebest21.com.